Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, we are from 4th group and we will explain about the material, the nature of language maintenance, shift and loss. The members of group 4 there are Abdul Salam, Anggraeni Khusuma Dewi, and Fifi Nur Afifa. Alright, the content of the PowerPoint we divide it into each part, such as the first is definition of language shift, and the second is language shift in different communities, the third is factor contributing to language shift, the fourth is definition of language maintenance, the fifth is factor affecting language maintenance, the sixth is the importance of minority language maintenance, the seventh is language death and language loss, and the last is language revival. Okay, in the first, second, and third discussion about definition of language shift in different communities, and factor contributing to language shift, it will be delivered by Abdul Salam. Salam, the time is yours.
Our discussion. First is language shift. Language shift is language transfer or language replacement whereby a speech community of a language shift to speaking another language. It happens when the language of the wider society or majority displaces the minority mother tongue language over time in migrant communities or in communities under military occupation. Next is language shift in different communities. There are three language shift in different communities. First, migrant minorities. Code switching may reflect attitudes of the majority monolingual group in places like North America and Britain. In places such as New Guinea and East Africa, attitudes are much more positive towards code switch styles. The order of domains in which language shift occurs may differ for different individuals and groups. Second is non-migrant communities. Language shift is not always the result of migration. For this community, the home is the one most under any family's control. Language may be maintained in more domains than just the home. Last is migrant majorities. When a language dies, its function and prestige are taken over by another language. A domain group has no incentive to adopt the language of minority groups. The domain language is associated with status, prestige, and social success for those who hold high position in it. Next is factors contributing to language shift. There are three factors contributing to language shift. First is economic, social, and political factor. In economic factor, the dominant language is associated with social status and prestige. In social, obtaining work is the obvious economic reason for learning another language. And political factor, the pressure of institutional domains such as schools and the media. Next is demographic factors. In demographic factors, language shift is faster in urban areas than rural. The size of the group is sometimes a critical factor, and intermarriage between groups can accelerate language shift. And the last one is attitudes and values. Language shift is slower among communities where the minority language is highly valued. Therefore, uh, s- when language is seen as an important symbol of ethnic identity, it's generally maintained longer and uh, vice versa. Okay, that's all from my presentation.
Alright, thank you, Salam. In the fourth, fifth, and sixth discussion about definition of language maintenance, factor affecting language maintenance, and the importance of minority language maintenance, it will be delivered by Anggraeni Khusuma Dewi. Anggraeni, the time is yours. The definition of language maintenance. According to Holmes, 2008, page 64, language maintenance is where language considers an important symbol of a minority group's identity. Thus, the language is likely to maintain longer. Meanwhile, based on Fishman's 1964, page 172, language maintenance as the preservation of a language variety in such a context where there is considerable pressure for speaker to shift toward the more dominant language. In that case, Fishman emphasizes the ambivalence of generalization that may seem to have common sense validity. Thus, language maintenance is not necessarily a function of strict adherence to group membership or strong feeling of nationalism. Another case explained by Holmes 2008, page 60 says, without active language maintenance, the shift is almost inevitable in many contexts. For example, where a migrant minority group moves to a predominantly monolingual society dominated by one majority group language. In the entire major institutional domain, school, TV, radio, newspaper, government, administration, course, and work, language shift will be unavoidable unless the community takes active steps to prevent it. It can be concluded language maintenance is the community collectively decide to continue the use of language in a domain formerly shift in progress. It happens when the members of the speech community are monolingual and are not collectively acquiring another language. Then they are obviously maintaining their language by using patterns. The next topics in language maintenance is factor affecting language maintenance. As we know, if families from a minority group live near each other and see each other infrequently, it may help them maintain their language. We can say that another factor which may contribute to language maintenance is the degree and frequency of contacts with the same hometown. Therefore, Gendra 2010, page 144, finds out the several factors which explain the language maintenance takes place. The factors included in the following is the first is large number of speakers. It means that the group more speaker has better possibility to maintain their language. The second is concentration of living. It means that the minority group of the minority language when they live together with the same ethnic and language. And the third is identity of pride of culture. It means that the speaker of the minority language consider and believe that not only that such as their language, it means their culture identity. Beside that, the speaker are also have pride and pride of their language. And the fourth is better economic condition. It means that immigrant with a good economic condition might believe that their fortune is also due to the language they use in their daily life. And the next discussion about the importance of minority language maintenance. There are four basic arguments made why language maintenance is important. They are: the first is essentiality of language diversity. It means that with the loss of language comes the loss of inherited knowledge and intellectual world. It can be concluded about the statement that the knowledge and intellectual world can be translated into global language. And the second is language express identity. Some researcher, his name is Baker, 2008, page 28, assumes that the child's first language is critical to his or her identity. By maintaining this language helps the child value his or her culture and secret heritage from their ancestors, which contribute to a positive self-concept. It is the language that makes human beings distinction from animals and among themselves. Therefore, maintaining the minority language together with promotion nation and global language are important things human beings accomplishment for their moving forward. And the third is social relationship. In social relationship, if they maintain their native language, they can help to develop their community and bilingualism status on their community. Otherwise, they break their connection between their community and themselves, standing for the development. Therefore, individuals get advanced status of development that left at their native community. Few of them feel ashamed of their community, culture, and language, want to change their identities. And the fourth is educational advantage. Based on Cummins, 1981, page 73, says there are important educational advantages in being bilingual, particularly when bilingual learners also become illiterate or literate in two languages. The more your bilingual learner can use both their languages in curriculum learning, the better. It can be concluded mentioned minority language is very important for us, as those above reason and the central rule of language. If the minority native speaker, they need to recognize their own language as important. It is no meaning and no use to revitalize the language. Therefore, the researcher the language maintenance efforts are to success only if they are responded by the community.
Alright, thank you Anggraeni. In the last discussion about language death and language loss and language revival, it will be delivered by Fifi Nur Afifa. Fifi, the time is yours.
C. Language death and language loss. When a language dies gradually, as opposed to all its speakers being wiped out by a massacre of epidemic, the process is similar to that of language shift. The functions of the language are taken over in one domain after another by another language, as the domains which speakers use the language shrink. The speakers of the dying language become gradually less proficient in it. There is an example of this language death and language loss material, which is Annie, at 20, is a young speaker of Darebal, an Australian Aboriginal language. She also speaks English, which she learned at school. There is no written Darebal material for her to read, and there are fewer contexts in which she can appropriately hear and speak the language. So, she is steadily becoming less proficient in it. She can understand the verbal she hears used by older people and her community, and she uses it to speak to her grandmother, but her grandmother is scathing about her ability in verbal, saying Annie doesn't speak the language properly. Can be explained from the example is because English is now so widely used in her community, it seems unlikely that verbal will survive in a view form based on the variety Annie speaks. It is on its way to extinction when Annie's generation die, and it is pretty certain verbal will die with them. The process of language that for the language comes about through this kind of gradual loss of fluency and competence by its speakers. Competence in the language does not disappear overnight, it gradually erodes over time. D. Language revival. There is no magic formula for guaranteeing language maintenance or for predicting language shift or death. Different factors combine in different ways in each social context, and the results are rarely predictable. The degree of success a group has in resisting the instruction of such a language into all domains, and especially the family domain, will generally account for the speed of language shift. There is an example of this language revival material, which is David is Welsh and he lives in London in Gwynedd. He is 14 and he goes to a Welsh medium boys secondary school where he is taught math, psychics and chemistry in English and history, geography and social studies in Wales. Like most of the boys in his class, he went to a Welsh medium primary school where almost all the teaching and learning was in Welsh. His parents speak some Welsh, but they are not fluent, and he recounts he knows a lot of more Welsh vocabulary than they do. His little sister attends the local Welsh primary school, and she has been complaining to their parents that there are some foreigners from Liverpool in her class who make fun of the sound of Welsh. David has threatened to come and sort them out, but so far, his parents have managed to resign his enthusiasm. In at least some areas, Welsh English bilingualism has become a reality for children who are taught in Wales at school. Now, ironically, it appears the success of these programs may again be under threat as a result of economic situation of English. Poor and unemployed families for areas such as Liverpool have moved to Wales because it is cheaper to live in the countryside than in the towns. At the other end of the social scale, richer people are exchanging small townhouse in the south for much larger house and land in Wales. The children of these English people are a threat to the success of bilingual programs since they see no point in learning Welsh. Once again, economic factors are likely to be important in assessing the long-term outcomes for effort and language maintenance and revival.
Alright, thank you, Fifi. Well, the conclusion of this material, there is no magic formula for guarantee language maintenance or for predicting language shift or death. There are three factors contributing to language shift. First are economic, social, and political factors. Second is demographic factor, and the last are attitude and values. Language shift generally refers to the process by which one language replaces another in the linguistic repertoire of a community. Language that has occurred when a language is no longer spoken naturally anywhere in the world. Okay guys, this is a presentation of material from our group regarding the nature of language maintenance, shift, and loss. Thank you for paying attention to our explanation until the end. I hope the material conveyed can be useful for us. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye.